So I'm glad you talked a lot about independence because I think because you're an independent artist, there's an assumption that, oh, she's an independent artist because she couldn't get a deal or
Right.
right. But your independence seems to be very central to who you
Oh
are.
yeah.
So just talk about why you have decided to remain an independent artist.
Yeah, I feel like I was built this way. You know, both my parents are entrepreneurs, and sovereign in their spirits. You know, I always consider my mom a sovereign nation, just the way she moves in the world. She's God's property, you know, and no man's, you know. And so I feel like I was just brought up under that, knowing that we live in an oppressive system. We were born into this oppressive system, and so we've always been seeking ways to fight for our humanity in this. And so that has caused us, the biggest way we can fight for our humanity is with ownership. You know, so my mother's an artist. She was in the music business before I was born. And so she would always speak to me really young about make sure you own what you do, your intellectual property, make sure you own it. Don't let anyone own you. You decide who you are, what's your story, tell your own story. And so at the time that I was like just learning and getting into the industry and learning what it meant to be a professional artist, I realized I couldn't find a place where they were allowing artists to tell their own story and to have any kind of sovereignty and ownership. And it just didn't sit well with who I was created to be, you know, like who I was born to be. I couldn't really swallow it or stomach it. And so I from the very beginning, you know, and I've had meetings with labels, and we've done artist development deals and, you know, and record deals when I had a rap group. So I stuck my foot in it for a second. I was like, nah, that doesn't sit well with me, you know. And I wanted to show other artists how they could have more self-autonomy, in particular over their messaging, you know, over their belief systems. Because there's so many artists that don't have the opportunity to stand up for things that they think are right because it might offend, you know, whatever company owns them or owns their name and likeness and intellectual property. And so I wanted to have an opportunity to be free and to speak freely and to decide how I was going to show up in the world without someone else telling me how I could show up in the world.
So you got in the business, even though I know you've been singing basically your whole life, but you didn't get into the business at, what, 16, 17 years old?
About 18.
18,
Yeah.
okay. Mm-hmm. So as you were starting out and starting to get interest, what was the feedback that you were hearing from people in the industry about the type of artist they thought you were?
Yeah, it was like...
or wanted you to be?
Definitely the feedback was that it was too revolutionary. We were very, very highly politicized. You know, I was homeschooled most of my life. And so my teachers were like Ivan Van Sertima and Jewel Pookrum. And, you know, we would go out and see Sister Souljah and KRS One and, you know, Doc Ben, all these different philosophers and Black authors. Like, that's who we were studying. And so we were very aware of what was going on in the world, and we were talking about it. And yeah, they let me know early on that you'll never sell a record. You know, it's like you have to tone down all this Black power stuff. Like, there's no way you're gonna be able to make money and do this. So yeah, so that was, and also that I was coming from a very jazzy background. My mother's a jazz singer. I studied jazz music as a child, and so my knowledge of Black music, the lineage of Black music, was very present in my tone, in my delivery, the texture, you know, everything, the way I performed and sang. I carried those ancestors with me. And so, you know, people thought that to be such a young teenage girl, like, how do you know, you sound like you're 40 years old, you know, singing these with this jazz tone. And so just so much of who I was just didn't seem to be very palatable with how they wanted to sell me, you know.
So how did you absorb that feedback? Like, it never made you discouraged or feel like maybe I shouldn't do this? Okay.
Yeah, definitely. It was definitely very discouraging. But you know, some things, when you really meant to do something, you can't, it's not something I could take off because you didn't like it. You know, because I wasn't pretending. It was authentic. So I can't take off who I am to now become whoever you think I should be. You know, there are some people that can do it. They can put the hat on and take it off. And I couldn't do that. And I just had to stay consistent with what felt authentic for me and my spirit. And at some point I knew it would come full circle. At some point people would catch up, because like where I came from was so far away from where they wanted me to go. Like I learned to sing in my mother's kitchen, when my grandmother would be cooking and I'll be sweeping, and we shucking corn. And it was just a way that we expressed it ourselves, the way we showed love to each other. My grandmother would just start moaning. And my mama started moaning, and she said, "Come on, child, moan." And I started moaning. I ain't nothing to moan about at that time. But, and it was just this spirit would take over, and it really was a spiritual process. People would call my grandmother to lay hands on them, and she would sing over their bodies and move, shift pain out of their bodies. That's what I understood music to be about. I didn't know until, and again, I told you we was homeschooled, so I didn't have my mother really curated what the inside of the house was like. I didn't have a whole lot of access to what people were doing outside. And so when I got into the music industry, it just was I didn't understand music as this thing to be commodified and packaged and sold, something that was separate from the spirit. I was like, how does that work? Why would you do that? Why would you separate it from God though? And so that was, I never could. I tried to shoe on it, just didn't fit. I couldn't walk in it. And so I just had to, keep cultivating what was real for me, what I understood sound, the purpose of sound to be about, which was healing. I had to just keep cultivating that and know that at some point my tribe would find me. At some point, the world, the tides would change, and it would become illuminated, and my purpose would be fulfilled. I had to just wait on it.